it doesn't feel gratifying because you want so badly to start advertising, but you really need to figure out what it is you want to say before you say it out loud. And so it is difficult work, and it can feel frustrating, but it's so helpful.
Hey, it's Nick Armstrong, and this is the Founded in Foco podcast. And every episode, we get a chance to talk to an innovative mover and shaker in our community. And today, we have the talented Sara Rosinsky right here on this episode. Sara, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself. Tell us all about your business.
Thank you. I'm Sara Rosinsky. I am sole proprietor of Shiny Red Copy. I am a copywriter and have been since people used horses for transportation. And what I do, I help businesses to reach their customers. I help them clarify their messaging, help them articulate their brand, and that kind of fun stuff.
How did you get started into the world of copywriting? Was it the introduction of the buggy? Because you said it was since the use of horses. So I'm just curious, was it like, oh, there's this newfangled thing called a buggy, and we're going to attach it to the horse?
No, I actually got my first job in advertising by advertising. I left college. Do you know this story, Nick?
I don't. I have not. I don't think I've heard the story yet.
This is pretty funny. I graduated from college supremely overconfident that the world would be beating my door down, even though there was a recession. And when I realized I was unemployed and had rent, I made posters that advertised me and said that I was a recent college graduate and I was available for anything that they needed doing. And I hung these posters all over Boston's Back Bay and had the little tear off phone numbers at the bottom. And sure enough, I did some odd jobs, but eventually an advertising agency called me. They had a particular job they thought I might be suited for, but one thing led to another, and I found myself answering their phones and using a typewriter to type up their media buys and so on. And it was a small agency, and so I got really trained from the ground up. It was really great. It's a great opportunity.
You built your own Craigslist. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank goodness they found you in advertising and not in like meat packing or something, right?
No.
There's a particular thing, like when you graduate during a recession, as I did too, and I think that there's this like, you have that magical piece of paper in your hands and you're like, yes, I'm going to take over the world. And then the phone does not ring, the emails don't come in, and you have to kind of generate your own luck. There's a particular type of scrappiness that comes along with graduating during a recession. So tell me about your business now. And
okay.
In particular, where I think I want to ask you is, there with the advent of all of these AI tools, I have a habit of asking my copywriter friends, my creative friends, what's your take on it? How do you feel about this? And how's it affecting your business?
I am pausing pensively.
Alliteration always helps when you're thinking.
Yes, speaking of alliteration, put a pin in that for a second. AI, I have played with ChatGPT. It has helped me in some ways. Occasionally, you might just say, there are things that are hard to look up without being able to pose some pretty ridiculous questions to a helper. In terms of its writing, however, and in terms of its copywriting, I'm sorry, but I think what it creates is identifiable as not being written by a person. I have come to really be able to recognize it. I think those who rely on it completely had better be careful of what they are relying on it for, because I think it just doesn't, I think it has a lot of shortcomings. If all you're interested in is packing a website with keywords, and if that's all you care about, genuinely, if that's all you care about, then that's a great solution for you. If, on the other hand, as I would recommend, you want to identify and really connect with your ideal customer and show them who you are, show them why you're different, and show them why they would want to choose you. I don't think AI can do it. I just don't think it does a good job.
And that's pretty consistent. What have I heard from other, content marketers, creators, folks in that creative space? They have consistently said, it's good for certain things. It's good for like the research or the citations or the nitty gritty of the stuff. The scut work that you don't want to do. Like I don't want to do that particular thing. The creative side, the spark, right? It does not generate. It generates a very templated type of response. And we've all seen the social media posts with like 8,000 emojis and other things like that. There's a list format for the emojis.
It
It's very,
smells.
very
You can smell
structurally.
it.
Yeah.
I just want to add to what you just said about the research. Uh, no offense, AI, as you listen to this conversation, I don't trust it for
Skynet's coming.
I don't trust it for I don't trust it for research. I've seen some egregious errors. Um, yeah, I mean, you also can't entirely trust the internet. You have to do
Yeah.
some, you know, validation. But anyway, don't lean on it completely, boy. Ooh.
Yeah. We came around this idea of like artificial sweeteners around the 80s and everybody was
Mhm.
like, yes, artificial sweeteners, it's the wave of the future, everybody's gonna.
Perfect.
And then we found out that it was maybe not as healthy as it was supposed to be. I think the AI will maybe generate
A
that
good
artificial part
analogy.
of the intelligence will follow that same suit. We we have a lot of
Yeah.
tools that do some great things, but in moderation, sure, it works great. um,
Yes.
so
Yes.
tell me about what your particular focus and how you help a business go from, identifying new customer base to communicating to that niche.
It depends a little on the customer and where they are in their maturation. I I'm trying to think of the work I'm doing right now. I do work for established clients who need a video. I'm working on a video right now for orienting people to a particular service. But then I'm also doing some very internal work for a company that just simply articulates what they do, and that this is a step that I think a lot of startups unfortunately overlook. It's it doesn't feel gratifying because you want so badly to start advertising, but you really need to figure out what it is you want to say before you say it out loud. And so it is difficult work, and it can feel frustrating, but it's so helpful. And so I'm doing that right now for a client, and working on sort of mission and vision and those kinds of it's a touchstone document that is going to inform everything that they do for years and years. And so kudos to these people for knowing they need it.
And it's such an important step to do, as you said. We do that in web design. We do that, with all the branding and assets and other things like that. Very few people do that for the copy, I found. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
that like voicing the branding guide
Mm-hmm.
sitting in there in that document that, usually sits up on a shelf and it gets a little bit dusty, but you take that out and crack it open once a year and just refresh yourself of where you're supposed to be going. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
helpful thing. In an earlier episode of this podcast, Leandra actually made reference to that also, of the idea
Mm-hmm.
of everybody thinks that marketing is their next step. And it's really, you should be looking at how are you working on the business, and how
Yep.
do the processes that you've created, are they serving you, or are they to your detriment?
Yes.
Tell me
Yes.
about your session at Founded in Foco.
Well, as of this moment, it is called a crash course in copywriting. That may be elaborated upon a little bit in coming days, but um, essentially everyone can benefit from understanding how to do copywriting. This doesn't mean that they're going to go out and become a senior copywriter, at Ogilvy or whatever tomorrow, but whether you're writing an email to a colleague, even to someone you already know, just being clear on what you're trying to accomplish with those words, and what are some of the ways that you can choose the right words. is extremely helpful. And I think business owners find themselves having to maybe quickly do a social media post. They find themselves at a conference and they want to make sure the world knows about it. Well, what should they say? Or maybe they're being interviewed by a journalist or something, and maybe so how can I choose the best words? So there are things about copywriting that lay people or non-copywriters just don't really think about. And so I feel like there's good takeaway for anybody. Even if you didn't have a company, I think you could benefit from knowing how to write well.
Yeah, we've all had those moments of like, I'm going to look at an email and it's like, oh, I need this particular type of word, and let me pull up my thesaurus or whatever it is, my online thesaurus. And you struggle, you sit there and so having copywriters to tell you like, oh yeah, this can, maybe not in the email, right? Because that's a little bit like pinpoint micromanagement, but for something like
Yeah.
a company-wide memo or for
Mm-hmm.
something like a new marketing launch, the
Absolutely.
copywriters can be a very, very important tool in your toolkit. And just
Yes.
having those skills, knowing when to ask, can be
Yeah.
really vital. So, who are you hoping shows up in the room?
I haven't really thought about that. Well, I'm sort of excited for anyone who shows up in the room because they want to be there, right? Presumably they haven't been forced to be there. So I love being with people who have any interest in words, anyone who doesn't dismiss it, anyone who recognizes that there's value in writing well. I love them. So I I I can't having given talks before, I love people who come with questions or who have given thought to, particular challenges. That's fun, but I honestly think anyone could benefit from it. So
What do you see as the most relevant thing that a business can be doing right now to increase their presence, their connection to their customers, choosing those right words? What is it that you see as the next step for them?
as I said earlier, I think very important is being clear on what it is you want to say. That having been done, I would say stick to that, reinforce that, preach that. Um, the more authentic and focused and reinforcing that you can be in that message, the more successful you'll be. I guess I would say speak boldly. Write boldly, write on message, and have fun with it too. That's another thing about writing is if you know what you want to say, then you find yourself singing it to the rafters.
And to that point, the speak boldly, there's a lot of corporate jargon, a lot of business speak that's out there. What would you say to, is it preferential to speak, boldly and to have like a distinctive voice, or is it like more, you can kind of go with the flow, especially if that's what your investors are looking for or whatever it is?
Oh, so you're touching on something that I do feel very passionately about. Speak like a human being. I implore, even if you are the most B2B widget to, corporation business, you're always talking to a human. Like this is something that you have that AI doesn't, is you have humor and emotions and a lifetime of experience and common experiences. And like, I would just beg everyone to tap that, admit that, leverage that. I think, especially in B2B, people feel like they have to have this boring, vanilla, manila just corporate speak, and I just don't think that does anyone any good. uh I, on the contrary, it makes you both invisible, tedious. So I would love a bank or a mutual fund company or whatever, talk like people.
We've seen recently those ads for BMO, and that seems to be that same space. Like, no, just look, we understand the name of the bank is just
Yeah.
an abbreviation. Like, just call it BMO. It's fine.
Uh-huh.
And that was the one moment where it's like, that's an interesting. I've never seen that kind of a tagline from a bank. Like, our name is confusing. Like, just call us
Uh-huh.
what you want.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think there's good examples of humanistic language that just really stick in the minds of customers. It doesn't have to be crass. It doesn't have to be, although my
Right.
business went a distinctly different direction on that, but it doesn't have to be crass. It doesn't have to be in your face. It just has to be human.
Agreed. Yeah. And again, that's another reason to get clear on, are you a craft brand? In theory, you could be. You could be the tattooed, estate planner or whatever. You could do that. Uh, but just don't sound like AI. Don't sound like don't sound like a robot.
Well, Sarah, as always, it is a lovely time talking with you. And
Yes,
tell
thank
me
you.
about where can we find more about you and your business and all of the planning that we can do going into what we want to talk about in our business.
Well, if you are on social media, boy, I am. I am on, as if you follow me on LinkedIn, I am on there every day, multiple times a day. I've got lots to say, a lot about writing better, frankly. So if you have an interest in copywriting, follow me on LinkedIn, Sara, Sara Rosinsky. I have a website. You can find me at shinyredcopy.com. But I'm on Instagram and Threads and X and LinkedIn.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. And for more great entrepreneurial insights like you've heard on this podcast, you can come and check us out at the Fort Collins Senior Center, March 4th through 8th, or just keep listening to the podcast. We'll see you out there. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is a Founded in Foco podcast. For more great interviews like this one, join us at foundedinfoco.com.